Strandfontein, particularly Baden-Powell Drive, queuing up from Mitchell's Plain through to Strandfontein Road, and then more queues as you come through sort of Baden-Powell, Beach Road, Atlantic Road. It's quite a backlog through Muizenberg in towards that main road junction. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
Over the last 50 years, one man has played an unparalleled part in transforming British society. This man is Rupert Murdoch. Feared by politicians, Murdoch has built the biggest media operation on the planet. His empire has given him extraordinary power and influence. The rise of the Murdoch family is an electrifying study of the Murdoch dynasty, charting the ups and downs of an empire. From the ambition that fueled its success, to the criminality that led to the closure of the News of the World and the Leveson Inquiry. This is The Rise of the Murdoch Family. Thursdays at 10 p.m. starts 13 February, only on S3.
The Golden Boys want to ensure their visitors return to Free State with disappointed faces. But Batabane Bantwa are ready to demonstrate how real warriors win tough battles. This is the Nedbank Cup quarterfinal. Catch Durban City FC and Marumo Gallants FC this Sunday, 9 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. Hey neighbor, what happened to you last night? We were vibing, watching the game, and then our team scored, and the next thing you were gone.
Askies, I missed the goal. You know, just before our team scored, Eskom came and then our electricity was disconnected.
Yo, so much drama. What happened?
We got a fine for buying electricity tokens from an illegal vendor.
And then your fancy orange jumpsuit?
Oh, just in case I get arrested for not paying the fine, Pela.
Ungathatha chance. Buy your electricity legally. Stop buying electricity from illegal vendors and tampering with electricity meters.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
6 minutes to 7 on this Friday. The City of Johannesburg's proposed bylaw requiring the registration of all private CCTV cameras that face public areas has sparked a heated debate. While city officials argue that the move will bolster law enforcement efforts, some in the private security and crime prevention community warn that it could actually undermine crime-fighting tools and infringe residents' privacy. The regulation, which also mandates that CCTV footage can only be shared with the police and under strict conditions, has raised concerns about its impact on both security operations and the potential misuse of sensitive data. A lot that I've said there. Let's unpack it all. I'm joined by Andre Ayton, who is the managing director of the security company Beagle Watch. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. What about this new bylaw concerns you in the security industry?
Morning, Thulasizwe. Thank you. Morning, listeners. Look, the bylaw naturally seeks to regulate and regulate the installations and the use of private security cameras within our footprints and within our residential areas. The bylaw really aims to deter crime and ensure safety, naturally, of all residents. However, we need to understand that it's going to take some time to regulate these cameras, as per the gazette that's been gazetted now. I mean, every single camera really needs to be registered on a database. This we can imagine is going to take some time within the sector to get right. But having said that, as a private security business, a large business that has a large footprint, I cannot tell you how the current use of CCTV platforms help in the overall crime fighting within South Africa today. It's probably one of the most strongest deterrents in terms of being able to bring these criminals to book and putting restrictions on them. I've had people reach out to me already and say, I was about to install a camera system at my home and I'm going to hold back. Now that is problematic for us because.
But Andre, is it putting restrictions on private CCTV though? Because all it says is that if it's facing public areas, like if it faces the front towards the street or the back of the property towards the public road and the street, it must be registered so that law enforcement can have access to it as well. Is that restricting?
It's not restricting the homeowner, but I think having gazetted this with very little information that's circling has obviously made South Africans worried and concerned without going into the nuts and bolts. You are quite right. Once the system is regulated, as per the bylaw, you can easily read into it that it's there to help law enforcement officials. That help is available today. We work extensively with JMPD and SAPS, and when there has been a crime committed, we are a partner of Vumacam as well. As long as you are following all the required POPI acts, we share the information. We are there to aid and assist government law enforcement to bring criminals to book and to be able to go and recover footage that will help in court bring these individuals to book.
But isn't the system helped and made more efficient though by the police and other law enforcement agencies knowing exactly that if a crime is reported on X street intersection with Y street, we know exactly where that camera is and we know who the owner of the property is that we go directly to, and we can ask for that footage or something like that. I'm just trying to see where the actual concerns arise here.
Most certainly it would aid once the database is captured and it's used effectively. We need to also understand that there needs to be a high level of security over this type of data, where the cameras are, who has access perhaps, who knows where they are. You know, you don't need that information to land in the hands of the wrong individuals. And we avoid those potential hotspots. So, look, there's a lot of controversy over all the information within this bylaw. I think time will tell how we cope with this. But right now, law enforcement really needs to be focused on deterring crime and detecting crime and apprehending and prosecutions. And all of this is done through probably one of the most important security infrastructures at the moment, which is actually CCTV.
So what I'm hearing also, and I'm glad you bring this up, a second part or another part of the concerns has to do with who holds this data, because, you know, the CCTV footage, public facing as it may be, captures a lot of data that, you know, you are worried that it could land up in hands that are, you know, you perhaps cannot be trusted as much by residents. Is that part of the concern?
Well, it is, absolutely. I mean, we don't know where the information is going to end up, how it's going to be used, and I'm not necessarily saying that this is the law enforcement side of things, but if we look at crime today, if we look at fraud, if we look at the banking scams that's taking place, eventually there's an infiltration of some form of crime, and it's used with these types of tools. You know, if I look at the video footage information today, we have incidents that take place right throughout our footprint, and the next day a short video clip is posted on social media of what happened and who saw it. So, you know, I think even a bit of regulations on that, especially when there is a docket that's been opened, you don't really need to share out on a social media platform the video in the car and the suspects. I mean, this type of stuff should be kept confidential until the investigating officer has conducted his investigation.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That's Andra Aiton, who is the Managing Director of Beagle Watch. Let's check in now with Ondela Mbana with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
Thank you, Tula's top stories. Ramaphosa wraps up his visit to Gauteng this morning, and Motsoaledi reacts to U.S. cessation of aid to South Africa. For SAFM News, I am Ondela Mbana, and a very good morning. President Cyril Ramaphosa will wrap up his visit to the Gauteng government with a meeting of members of the Johannesburg City Council this morning, accompanied by several cabinet ministers and their deputies, as well as some Director General. He met the Gauteng executive yesterday. In the meeting, the president expressed his displeasure at the state of the dilapidation of the province and the city. He encouraged the province to work closely with the private sector to ensure innovative ways of funding key infrastructure projects, including working with metros in providing incentives to crowd in private sector participation.
Gauteng contributes to the largest share of any province of the country's gross domestic product, boasts critical economic hub in the country, serving as a powerhouse of finance, governance, industry and innovation. Johannesburg, as the financial capital of Africa, is home to this Johannesburg Stock Exchange and is headquarters of numerous multinational corporations. It is a city of commerce, it is a city of investment and economic dynamism.
Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi says the United States of America owes South Africa nothing. The minister made the remarks during the National Assembly's urgent debate into the U.S. decision to stop aid to South Africa. Motsoaledi told members of parliament that the country needs to be self-reliant.
Trump doesn't owe South Africa any cent whatsoever. And for that reason, we need to stand on our own. We must not waste this crisis. For that reason, Honorable Malema, I am challenging this House. Can we call a debate and debate in this House why all of us here, including all well-to-do South Africans who are on medical aid, why are we still getting heavy subsidies to stay on private medical aid? Is it fair? Should we be doing that during this difficult moment?
The NPA's investigating directorate will be at the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein this morning to revive the 24.9 million rand Nulane fraud, corruption and money laundering case. The NPA will argue in the SCA that Free State High Court Judge Nompumelelo Gusha erred in her judgment on the matter. 8 accused, including Gupta Associates and former Free State Department of Agriculture officials, were acquitted by the court in 2023. The case related to the money paid by the Free State Department of Agriculture to Lulane Investment to conduct a feasibility study for the Free State Province's flagship Mohuma Mobung project on the basis that Nulane had unique skills to perform the work. The NPA wants the SCA to order a retrial in the Nulane case. In order to address the SABC's financial crisis, Communications Minister Solly Malatsi is reportedly thinking of implementing a streaming levy that would be paid by all South Africans who use both domestic and foreign streaming services. This was revealed in a parliamentary written reply to a question by an IFP MP on alternative funding sources for the SABC. According to Malatsi, government is forced to consider alternative ways of funding the public broadcaster due to shortcomings in its TV license model. Streaming expert Leslie Adams has welcomed Malatsi's suggestion.
This is specifically a question in response to how the current shortfall of adherence to paying TV licenses is actually affecting the SABC's ability to remain properly funded, and a consideration to actually look at different funding models and a possible levy against streaming services like the likes of Netflix and others who are not locally based, who don't pay local taxes, would ultimately impact. Globally, this is actually a norm. So it's not a unique South African unique experience. It's actually globally being adopted by different countries already in the EU. The UK now adopting it as well. And South Africa, I think it would be smart to follow in that space. SABC also needs to look at different licensing models around their content.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says he'll travel to Saudi Arabia next week, where Ukrainian and U.S. officials are due to discuss an initial ceasefire with Russia. Zelensky says Kyiv is working constructively for a fast and lasting peace. This comes after U.S. President Donald Trump held direct talks with Russia's Vladimir Putin and stopped sharing intelligence and providing military aid to Ukraine. Recapping the top story, President Cyril Ramaphosa will wrap up his visit to the Gauteng government with a meeting of members of the Johannesburg City Council this morning. I am on the Lambada for SFM News Headlines at 7:30.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
50 Rand petrol won't get you anywhere nowadays, but Outsurance is still dedicated to saving you money on your car insurance. Get a quote, and if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash, and make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get monthly savings on your car insurance or cash in your pocket. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Might have very heavy coming through Midrand this morning. There's a crash here between New Road and Allendale. That's on your way through to Joburg, and it's a big backlog right through to the Brockfontein interchange. Side roads are heavily congested. Combination of motorists diverting away from the N1 queues, getting caught in some roadworks on the old Joburg Road, and getting caught in faulty traffic lights through the area as well. So coming out of Pretoria, major delay alert if you're on your way down to Joburg using Route 1. There's also been a collision scene, Lone Hill Boulevard at Crestwood Drive. So there's quite a bit of traffic backlogging in that Lone Hill area this morning. Durban side, the Chatsworth exit, Higginson Highway was busy yesterday morning. It was pretty busy getting in yesterday afternoon, and it's slow this morning. It was busier earlier. It is starting to just calm down a little bit. The N3 out of Pietermaritzburg, no major problems on your way to Durban. That's the good news today. Cape Town, N7, jam-packed from Goodwood up to Bosman's Dam Road. Marine Drive, queuing out of Tableview through Sunset Beach, and then there's another queue as you come through the paddocks down towards Broad Road, down by that Milnerton High School complex, and still a lot of traffic around the South Peninsula side. Baden-Powell heading to Muizenberg's backed up into Strandfontein Road, the Beach Road at Muizenberg busy towards Main and Atlantic, and the Cork Bay run on the southbound Main Road. That's quite slow getting from Muizenberg through St James and into that Cork Bay area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. It's soccer with the Kaizer Chiefs coach Nazruddin Nabi saying that Kaizer Chiefs needs a cup-winning habit, and this is ahead of their quarter-final match that's taking place in Gqeberha against Stellenbosch FC in the Nedbank Cup. And we also bring you action from golf. England's Jordan Smith and China's Deng Wenyi, they share the first-round lead of the Joburg Open. Details around 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's just gone 9 minutes after 7. It's good to be in your company. We're into the second hour of the morning brief here on SAFM. Let me do things slightly differently this morning, simply because there's a bit of a programming and scheduling pressure for one of our guests. So let me get straight into it for this second hour. The Democratic Alliance's recent week-long working visit to the United States has triggered a fair amount of controversy within the coalition government. The DA says it undertook the trip as its contribution towards stabilizing relations between Pretoria and Washington. The party says as part of the government of national unity, it is well positioned to represent the country's national interests on the international stage. But the International Relations and Cooperation Minister, Ronald Lamula, is not impressed by what he believes was the DA's own frolic that in no way represents the country's foreign policy. I'm joined now by Emma Powell, the DA MP and also its national spokesperson on foreign affairs. Good morning, and thank you for your time this morning. Who did you meet in Washington?
Morning, thanks for having me. So given the critical nature of South Africa's relationship with the United States, the DA believed it was urgent that we sought to de-escalate and try and stabilize the situation. We traveled to Washington last week. We were able to meet with key decision makers at Congress, so both at the House of Representatives and at the Senate, both Democrats and Republicans. We were able to engage with key policy advisors to Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, at the State Department, with Africa advisors on the Africa desk at the National Security Council at the White House, and then a range of other think tanks. We were also able to have an informal discussion with South Africa's ambassador to the United States.
So In de-escalation and stabilizing, in your words, what was your core narrative about the U.S. perceptions that have informed some of their drastic decisions towards South Africa? You know, on the key issues such as whether or not Afrikaners are being treated unfairly in this country and being targeted as a group, whether or not there are race-based policies in this country that unfairly discriminate against segments of the population. What was the message you were taking to them? Were you saying to them, you've got this all wrong, or were you saying, you've got it all right, but it's not as bad as you think?
Well, it's clear that there's a huge amount of pressure that's being brought to bear from certain segments of South Africa's civil society landscape in regards to concerns applicable to a small minority of South Africans. The Democratic Alliance represents all South Africans, and so the intention of our visit was really to make sure that U.S. decision makers and leaders were able to receive accurate and fact-based information about South Africa's domestic landscape and the challenges that we're facing. We were able to have conversations in terms of what the DA is doing to challenge the Expropriation Act, the fact that despite the executive order issued by Donald Trump, the reality is that there are currently no state-sponsored arbitrary land dispossessions currently happening, but we're of course concerned about the future implications of the act, which is why we've launched judicial action. We were able to have a discussion around the opportunity that the Government of National Unity poses in terms of a full reset of South Africa's fiscal and economic policy, as well as our foreign policy, sort of moving that towards a more consistent application of our principle of non-alignment. We were able to have some discussions about the significant and absolutely dire implications of the PEPFAR and aid cuts. So really it was just to open direct communication channels to make sure that the decision makers were receiving accurate and credible information, and to ask them what a pathway towards de-escalation and stabilization of the relationship looked like. So to find out what was required from the United States.
But I guess, Emma Powell, part of the suspicion of your visit emanates from the fact that from the question that says, is it possible for you to have given them a factual account of the policies in this country, given that you already have a position on those policies, and your perception of the policies, such as affirmative action, the Expropriation Act, the Bella Act, and others, is based on your own opposition to it? When the doors were closed, many suspect that it's highly unlikely that you had the position that mirrors what the South African government has been saying, that the Expropriation Act, for example, will not lead to wanton wanton disregard for private property rights. I guess that's where the suspicion is coming from.
Well, when you mention the South African government, you must remember that the DA forms part of the South African government. We're the second largest stakeholder. There's no party in this nation that has an outright majority, so it's coalition country. The DA is the second largest stakeholder in government. We definitely didn't go there to negotiate on behalf of government. We went there to provide fact-based and credible information in terms of what is currently going on in South Africa, and to try and reassure decision makers, as you say, that right now there is no arbitrary dispossession of land taking place, but we've got broader concerns. We went there to find out how we could stabilize the relationship in light of AGOA. I mean, we do almost $24 billion worth of trade with the United States. A quarter of this is done under AGOA. We can't afford to lose AGOA and our access to that. We went there to speak about the opportunities that exist now that we have a coalition government for a reset of foreign policy, and to have discussions around, as I say, what a de-escalation looks like. It's crucially important that we continue to build a strong and mutually beneficial relationship with the US.
All right.
So I think the criticism is largely unfounded.
All right. I do need to release you. Thank you for your time this morning. That's Emma Powell, who is a DA MP and also the party's national spokesperson on foreign affairs. In the next few minutes, I'll be in conversation with the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, on this issue.
The pressure is mounting in the second half of the league. Both SC Freiburg and RB Leipzig refuse to bow. They want to triumph to protect their top half positions. This is the Bundesliga. Football at its intimate Experience the German way of the beautiful game. Sporting Club Freiburg versus RB Leipzig on Saturday, 8 March at 7:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Turn your vision into reality with Vodacom Business. Get the Samsung Galaxy S25 on a Red Business 1.7 gig contract for 1,129 Rand per month over 24 months. Enhance your deal. Add 69 Rand extra per month over 24 months and get the Samsung Galaxy Watch 7 eSIM. Available in-store and online. T's and C's apply. Further together. Vodacom Business.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
17 minutes after 7. Let's welcome then into the conversation Ronald Lamula, the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation. Good morning to you, Minister, and thank you for your time. I'm not sure how much of my conversation with the DA's Emma Powell you caught, but from it all, it would appear that the DA insists that this was innocuous. In fact, it was in South Africa's best interest. As one of the stakeholders in the GNU, they have an interest in ensuring that they, if they can, play a role in straightening out this relationship. What's your take? Are you comforted by what the DA has said about this trip that they undertook to Washington?
Yeah, thank you very much, Thulasizwe, and to all the listeners of SAFM. In terms of Section 231 of the Constitution, the South African foreign policy is the responsibility of the National Executive Committee. The GNU does not supersede the Constitution of the country. In terms of representing South Africa anywhere in the world and to put its aspirations and its national interest, it is vested to the National Executive Committee, which is led by the President and also the Department of International Relations. There is nothing wrong with parties going to Washington or to anywhere in the world, as long as they don't portray themselves as representing the South African government like the DA is doing. They do not have any right to do that. They are not bestowed or mandated by the Constitution. They can go to the US, the ANC or EFF or anyone can go to the US, but they go there to speak on behalf of the organization and so forth, but not to portray themselves as a government of South Africa and representing the interest of the people of South Africa. As you will be aware, Thulasizwe, from time to time when we visit some of these countries, we do sometimes invite parties, we do invite COSATU, trade unions and so forth, even business to be part of our engagement. But as when they go on their own alone, they represent themselves, but there will be opportunities where the government says you are part of this delegation. Sure. So what the DA is doing is not in line with the Constitution, is not representing the South African people.
But Minister, the DA's Emma Powell was quite clear, at least in this conversation, that they were not representing the South African government. They went there as one of the interested and vested stakeholders in the government, but not representing the government.
She has put it in a convoluted way, Thulasizwe. Firstly, she says that they are part of the majority in the GNU and therefore they represent the interest of the South African people. She was just trying to avoid the reality when she then put that. It's a serious contradiction. You can't say you are representing the interest of the South African people and therefore you are no longer representing the government. It's a contradiction. They must choose what they were doing there, which is clear. They were representing the Democratic Alliance. And the Democratic Alliance is not the South African government. The South African government is, and at all material times, represented by the representative in terms of the Constitution, which is the President, the Minister of International Relations, or any other minister or person that the President may assign to represent him on foreign policy in any country.
So, Minister, what about this visit irks you, though? So if we put aside, if we say we accept your argument that they went there representing the DA and their own interests, fair and fine. But if they continue to, and they insist that in doing that, they were there to ensure that they put the facts on the table, because part of the problem in this situation that we've been complaining about as South Africa is that the decisions being made in Washington are not fact-based. They are based on lies and disinformation. So what's wrong with them in their capacity as representatives of the DA and their constituency going there and saying, hang on, we know the facts, here are the facts?
There's nothing wrong with that, Thulasizwe. What becomes wrong is when they portray themselves to be representing the South African people and its interest.
I see.
Which, as I've already said, in terms of the national interest document, the Constitution of the Republic, those can only be represented by the national executive in terms of the Constitution. So the DA says they respect the rule of law. They must also respect it in this regard. As you are aware, we have got an ambassador in the United States by the name of Ibrahim Rasool, who represent the South African government in the US, and is hard at work meeting with all the relevant stakeholders. And as when he meets them, he tells us who he has met, what is the progress and what is happening. And as I can tell you now, as we speak in the State Department, the relevant people responsible for Africa, in particular South Africa, are not yet in place. They are not yet in place in terms of trade. So when he meets and when we go to the US and meet, we are able to tell you, Thulasizwe, that I was in the US, I met Congress people, these are the people that I've met. You will also see the pictures. If I say I've met key decision makers, I will say these are the key decision makers that I've met, and you will also see the pictures. We will not only be speaking about the key. We will tell you. So I was hoping that you will also ask Emma Powell, who are these key decision makers that they've said they've met, which are there, because as we speak in Washington, there is a transition. A number of officials, key relevant ones, are not yet in place in the State Department. Yes, in Congress and in Senate, people are already there. And as I've said, our ambassador is already hard at work.
I've got to ask you though, am I correct in picking up a sense of suspicion and mistrust based on you not trusting what message the DA took? I take the point you make about the format, that they can't go representing South Africa. But is it that at the heart of this issue is that you just don't trust your coalition government partners to communicate a message consistent with what you've been saying once doors closed, wherever they are in those meetings with key decision makers?
We don't have a problem with the trust, Thulasizwe, and that's why I say that. For example, if we go from time to time, we will go, even in the government of national unity. For example, in government now, when the president assigns ministers to go to anywhere, we will go with Mr. Steenhuisen. We will send Mr. McPherson, who is a minister from the DA, and in some of these countries, we send them alone. Mr. McPherson has just returned now from the Middle East. In some instances, Mr. Steenhuisen will go to any country in the world, sent properly mandated by the president. So we are saying, when you want to portray yourself as representing the South African government, you must be properly mandated. People go with a mandate. When you go, you don't just go. There is procedures and processes. And you will also realize in one of the G20 meetings, one of them is chaired exclusively by Mr. Steenhuisen. So the president, the Department of International Relations, we don't have any problem of trust. We're saying procedures and processes must be followed for anyone to represent the South African government. And in this regard, and that's why we will, even from time to time, have BUSA, have the Black Business Council, have trade unions to go and send and clarify any message. We have no problem with that, but the key thing is to share, agree, and give a clear mandate that is defined.
But is this insistence on the form, and some would say form over substance, is this not where you then lose the battle against groupings such as AfriForum and Solidarity, in that they play the game very well in terms of pounding the pavement in capitals like Washington? Do you not benefit as a government from people that at least right now, you are comfortable sharing a government with, also saying, hang on, let's do exactly the same. Let's pound the pavement in Washington and put out a different message?
It is a very important procedure, Thulasizwe, because then we all know the message that we are dealing with. We all are mandated by the relevant processes, and there's clear reporting lines. If you allow any other person to do as they wish, then it will be free for all. And also when any other one who has got a message like AfriForum or Solidarity, they can also do it. And any other person, it will be free for all. There is no country that can be run like that.
All right, Minister.
There must be order, there must be procedure. Sure. The constitution must be respected when you represent a country.
Okay, I think we've covered enough of this. I do need to move us along. So I've got confirmation now from the presidential spokesperson Vincent Magwenya that the visit by the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will take place on the 10th of April. The presidency has now confirmed that. Just locate that visit within South Africa's role. What role are we playing at this point of the process to try and find peace between Russia and Ukraine? There's certainly been a lot that has been happening. Last month, a phone call between President Ramaphosa and President Zelensky, meeting with the foreign minister of Russia on the sidelines of the G20. What role are we playing now in how the truce and a possibly a peace process going forward plays itself out?
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Thulasizwe. It is indeed a very important aspect. As you are aware, South Africa is a peace-loving country. We want to continuously see peace across the globe through dialogue and through engagement. For over a period of 2 years, the president, as you will remember, led an Africa initiative, which led to the processes now that are unfolding in Ukraine and Russia, the peace formula, where we continued to participate, and through the 2 special envoys of the president, where you will remember we insisted that in all the processes, Russia should be invited to the negotiation table. And up until President Zelensky agreed, when the president met with him in Washington on the margins of UNGA, that he must, during these negotiations and all the processes that were unfolding with regards to the conflict, invite Russia to the table. The things have now changed, as you have said, what role we are playing now, because with the new administration in the U.S. as led by President Donald Trump, there is now a direct engagement between the U.S. and Moscow. And we continue to say all parties to the conflict must be invited to the table. There must be an engagement that leads to a long-lasting peaceful solution. So the visit of President Zelensky is in line with that process that was started of the Africa Peace Formula that the president led to Ukraine and also to Russia.
All right, Minister, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That's Ronald Lamula. He's the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, reflecting on quite a few things. Initially, of course, we were talking about the DA and its visit to Washington, that the visit that they undertook, that they say in their words was meant to stabilize the relationship between Washington and Pretoria. But as you heard towards the end there, we were talking about the visit that has now been confirmed to be on the 10th of April, confirmed to us by the presidential spokesperson Vincent Magwenya. The visit that is of the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. At 7:30, Ondela Mbana on standby with your latest news headlines.
Thank you. To us in the news headlines, Gauteng police are investigating a case of murder and attempted murder following a shooting incident that claimed 3 lives and leaving 4 injured last night at a restaurant in Sandton. Civil society organization OUTA has called for the taxation of the taxi industry as well as the informal sector. This as the budget speech approaches and members in the GNU are still unable to agree on where to find the 58 billion rand shortfall. And President Cyril Ramaphosa will wrap up his visit to the Gauteng government with a meeting of members of the Johannesburg City Council this morning, accompanied by several cabinet ministers and their deputies, as well as some of directors general. He met the Gauteng executive yesterday. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's a very busy Friday coming out of Pretoria down to Joburg. Prepare for a long haul and a slow go. There's a cow or there might even be two cows actually. Been on the N1 South near Rigel Avenue for some time, since early hours this morning. They just wandered there. Authorities are trying to get them moved on, so there are some lane closures, big delays into that scene coming down from Linwood Road to Rigel, and then once you get through that it opens up a bit, but you're back in heavy traffic from Old Joburg Road all the way through to a crash at Allendale, just before Allendale. So two big queues on the N1 South to work through, and that run on the N1 through Midrand, causing all sorts of chaos on the sort of localised corridor, if you like. Sam Rand, Oliphant's New Road, queuing to get in. On top of that, there's loads of traffic lights down in the area, and sort of motorists ducking off wherever they can to try and avoid it, just creating additional delays through that Midrand area. It is heavy this morning. Durban, crash at 20 Hill, if you're coming out of Amunsum, totally up through Prospectum on your way to Durban. That's heavy. Queue number 2 is from the M7 up through Westwood Mall, and the M7 into Pinetown, very heavy again as well. East London, I understand the N6 has just been reopened at Duckett, so you can move through there, but be cautious and careful. This protesting has been sporadic and has been on the go since Monday. It's day 5. The community there throwing stones into the traffic and then also burning tyres. It can happen without any notice, as these things do. Cape Town this morning, N7 North, pretty heavy up towards Bosman's Dam Road. The N2 inbounds under pressure, a crash at Boonga Avenue, a breakdown at Lisbik Parkway, delays going in from the airport side. And if you drive every morning up to Stellenbosch on Baden-Powell through that construction, it's really heavy this morning. Heavy queues from Spear all the way up to the sort of Adam Tuss turning into Stellenbosch. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you once again, Zai. It is an age-old expression in sport that winning is a habit. You either have it or you don't. and I don't want to say anything nasty about Amakosi because, we have one Zelma Chibi here controlling the buttons and my mic might just go off. But Nasruddin Nabi is saying something about that and Kaizer Chiefs and whether or not they have this habit. I'm being careful.
Yeah, I could see you've operatively chosen these words.
Absolutely.
And yes, that's Nabi. I think someone should remind him that habits are formed over time, and 10 years is a long time to keep fans waiting. So I don't know how the fans are feeling, because remember, they did beat Stellies twice already, but this is the Nedbank Cup. It's a knockout match. So we can't be passing school tests but failing the final exam. So let's hope tomorrow Nasruddin Nabi and his Chargers will go through when they take on Stellenbosch FC at Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium in Gqeberha. Chiefs are now in their 10th year since they lifted silverware. But let's hear from Nabi.
Il faut exploiter les deux possibilités, aller jusqu'au bout. Mais il ne faut pas exploiter celle de Nedbank uniquement pour...
We have to play both sides. The difference is not big. Between our position and the third in the league, there is only 3 points. It's largely in our hands. For the cup, we have to do everything. It's a Kaizer Chief. It doesn't mean that it's only a possibility to go to CAF to CAF competition through Nedbank. No, we want as a big club, as a Kaizer Chief, to go back to winning trophies, even if we don't go anywhere, but to go back to have the habit of winning trophies.
And in the meantime, just hours after addressing the media ahead of Sekhukhune United's Nedbank Cup showdown with Mamelodi Sundowns, coach Leshlonolo Siema was shown the door again. The club announced his departure last night, replacing him with Ketano Tembo and Paulus Masehe. Sekhukhune currently sit 4th in the league and have a strong season, but back-to-back defeats seem to have sealed Siema's fate. Orlando Pirates coach Jose Rivero is looking forward to their clash as well. There's plenty with regards to Orlando Pirates this time. Jose Rivero knows that they're preparing for their 34th game of the season. They're taking on SuperSport United in the Nedbank Cup quarter-final. That's tomorrow. Let's go to some other news. Neymar has been recalled to the Brazil squad after a 17-month absence for the upcoming World Cup qualifiers against Colombia and Argentina. He had an underwhelming spell at Saudi Pro League side Al Hilal but he has caught the eye since moving back to his boyhood club in January. Elsewhere, Chelsea grabbed a first-leg advantage in the last 16 of the Conference League with a 2-1 win over FC Copenhagen, and Manchester United had to settle for a 1-1 draw at Real Sociedad in their Europa League round of 16 first leg. And staying with the Europa League, Rangers, they had a 3-1 win against Fenerbahce in the first leg of their last 16 tie in Istanbul. On to golf, and China's Wen Yiding and England's Jordan Smith took advantage of an early start as they opened with rounds of 7 under par 63 on the par 70 at the Houghton Golf Club course to share the lead in the Joburg Open. Ding and Smith both went bogey-free on day one of this Sunshine Tour and DP World Tour co-sanctioned event. They lead by 1 over South Africa's Malcolm Mitchell and Jaden Shaper, Englishman Marco Penge and Callum Tarrant. Here's Smith.
Yeah, I think it was just taking advantage of hitting driver on a few holes, getting a bit further down there, and then hitting the wedge shots closer and trying to manage the spin, because obviously with them being so soft, you really have to sort of judge it perfectly. But yeah, just really happy with that. I mean, it's just unbelievable how good the golf course is, considering how much water we had last night. So yeah, all credit to all the green staff.
And we'll have more sports. That's here on the Morning Brief at top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The business update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning once again to Ndauling. So Ndauling, in company news, tell me about Sanlam delivering double-digit earnings growth.
So the financial services group had an upbeat year driven by strong organic growth across Sanlam's life insurance, general insurance and investment management businesses. And this led to a 37% jump in earnings. Total new business volumes also increased, coming in 6% higher, boosted by strong inflows in investment management. Net client cash flows jumped 52% to 54 billion rands, reflecting a recovery in its South African investment management operations and improved performance in asset and wealth management businesses. Looking forward, company CEO Paul Hanratty expressed optimism about Sanlam's prospects. He noted that while inflation and interest rates remain a concern globally, South Africa's growth forecasts have improved. And in a separate announcement, Sanlam and 91 reported progress on their strategic partnership. The partnership announced in November last year involves 91 acquiring Sanlam Investment Management for 5 billion rands. Sanlam will then receive a 12.3% equity stake in 91 and appoint the company as its primary active asset manager. That partnership is expected to be finalized later on this year.
And then tell me a bit about FirstRand and how they are monitoring this UK car finance probe. What's that all about?
So it's really a wait-and-see game for FirstRand. In a News 24 article, the company's CEO, Miri Vilakazi, said it will only know in about 6 months whether it needs to increase its 3 billion rand provision for the potential impact of a UK regulatory probe. The probe, led by the UK's Financial Conduct Authority, is investigating vehicle finance commissions and could result in FirstRand's motor finance unit facing big cost. The company initially set aside 3 billion rands in June 2024 to cover potential costs, but a recent UK Court of Appeal ruling has widened the scope of the probe, potentially increasing the liability for FirstRand. And FirstRand isn't the only South African company being hit by this probe. Investec, also one of those companies being hit by it. Now, Vilakazi says the company is challenging the ruling in the UK Supreme Court, with a hearing expected next month. The outcome of the Supreme Court ruling will determine whether FirstRand needs to increase its provision. Vilakazi notes that recouping commissions paid to dealerships and compensating car loan beneficiaries could be a complex task. The company's UK operations, including that car loan units, Moto Novo and Alderman, contribute around 9% of FirstRand's earnings. While Vilakazi acknowledges that the UK operations are small, she says the company is committed to turning things around on that front. FirstRand's group return on equity is 20.8%, while the UK operations have an ROE of 10% in pound terms. The group says the company aims to increase the UK operations ROE to 15% in the near future.
All right, Ntauling, please give us another roundup of market activity here at home and elsewhere in the world.
Kicking things off in Asia, markets are still mixed as Trump's tariff policies remain under the spotlight. The Japanese Nikkei is down over 2%, while the Hong Kong Hang Seng is up over 0.5%. Then over in the US, futures are in positive territory, reversing some of yesterday's losses. Traders are awaiting the US non-farm payrolls for further insight on how the labor market has been faring. Then back at home, trade was mixed yesterday as investors remain cautious. The all-share managed to eke out some gains, closing 0.62% higher. The rand, in the meantime, powering through this morning, sitting at 18.13 to the dollar.
All right, that's Aunt Dowling Lechela. She'll come back with one more update for you just after 8:30, giving you a sense of what to expect in the markets on this Friday.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Sipho Mantula. Raz, good morning to you. So let's start in South Sudan, in Juba. Tell me about these are high-level arrests, right, of people linked to the vice president.
The refreshing morning, Thulas, and Jumbo Africa to the listeners. Thulas, it is worrying and it is a tension going on in the capital city of the South Sudan. Yesterday, people are very close to the first Vice President, Riek Machar. This, we are talking about the Minister of Petrol, we are talking about the Deputy Army Chief General, as well as some of the bodyguards and families. This has been a tension to us around that. Some of the soldiers have occupied an army base in the Upper Nile state. Despite that, there were no reason given for this arrest, and also the surrounding of the military, of the house of the first Vice President Riek Machar. Remember, this is a country that went on a peace process in 2018 in Addis after there was a fallout in 2013 between SPLM within its structure, between Riek Machar as well as Salva Kiir. Now, when we are having this tension to us, it is still telling you about the delayed elections of the South Sudan. When you have tensions of the presidency and the first vice president, and as you know, our ambassador in the South Sudan, Thulas, here just informed me that they are trying by all means, Thulas, to engage with both parties who are in this mess. Because once we have two parties fighting, Thulas, it will affect the whole process in South Sudan in terms of a democratization of South Sudan.
Tell me about Lesotho and their reaction and response to what Donald Trump had to say. It seems like someone needs to get Trump a map of the world, or one of those geography teaching aid globes.
Yeah, correctly, Thulas. Correct. You can say basic 101 actually in geography, But what is important here, we are seeing the government of Lesotho coming from the office of the government and the foreign ministry saying that these are quite insulting and they will not take these matters lightly. Considering, Thulas, that we have Americans, the so-called U.S. Peace Corps, who have been into the kingdom of Lesotho. And the second aspect is that the same Elon Musk is planning to have a license of even pushing an internet services in Lesotho via the Starlink network, maybe to survey the people of Lesotho and maybe us using that Starlink. We don't know, Thulas, but these issues of undermining African countries, if one has listened to those list of wasted foreign spendings, not only Lesotho, there was Uganda, there was Mali. There were many African countries who were flagged out for wasteful expenditure by the Trump administration. But this is worrying to undermine the kingdom of Lesotho.
And give us an update on the DRC conflict. There was a call for a pause in the fighting, and it came from both the East Africa community and SADC. It doesn't appear like it's been heeded, has it?
Thulas, we are entering what I pick up from strategic studies and many analysts who are looking at that the DRC conflict is now entering a dangerous new phase. Looking at the first insurgency of M23 Thulas in 2012, that they have moved fast during the first Congo 1 and Congo 2, that they have now occupying almost 124,000 of square kilometers of the mineral reach of the Kivus. They are planning to move towards Kisangani in the north central of DRC, Lubumbashi in the south. And you'll recall, you have Burundi, you have Uganda, Thulas, who are trying to deal with those armed forces of the 23. But when you look at scenarios, Thulas, they are calling for the 1991-1992 national dialogue. Others are calling for the inter-Congolese dialogue as the solution of dealing with M23. Because we had the East Africa Community meeting twice, we have the SADC meeting, we have the joint meeting, Thulas, we have sanctions, we have Tshisekedi now trying to go to the US asking for more weapons, and have asked even from Chad. So this is a complex issue. Hence I said DRC is entering into a new phase, which is very dangerous for the people of the Great Lakes.
Speaking of the DRC, quite a number of countries in the West have been taking a position about Rwanda and its involvement in that conflict in the DRC. But I see that the EU says they will continue to fund the Rwandan presence in Mozambique in Cabo Delgado.
Confusing to us as the EU says that when they look at their contractual terms of the EU funding for counterterrorism in Mozambique, it is different from what they are looking at the role of Rwanda in the war in the Eastern DRC. They have said that yes, there are sanctions that have been imposed by some of the EU member states from Germany, Canada, but as the EU, they have also looked at the question that the DRC is a non-negotiable space because that's where the UN Charter applies. But for them, is that the Rwandan forces are in Cabo Delgado to deal with the counter-terrorism. And here we're talking about the 4,000 Rwandan military personnel to us that they've moved beyond Palma and Musi, Wadi Braya. They've moved to other areas of Mozambique to assist the government of Mozambique coming from Rwanda, supported by the EU. Remember the SADC mission pull out to us. So we are sitting with this challenge of still having Rwanda, still having EU in Mozambique, and they are saying they are willing also to engage on the post-electoral unrest or crisis that have been going on.
All right, lastly, Sipho, take us through your historical archive. 7 March 1994. What happened on this day of significance?
As you will recall, it was just before the 1994 elections 31 years ago. The former and the late President Thulasizwe Mandela rejected this demand by the right-wingers for a separate homeland. But we have Orania Thulas probably, but he said that it will never happen in his lifetime. He was addressing a rally in Leboa, in the northern Transvaal. This was a campaign of Nelson Mandela Thulas just before the April 26 and 28 elections, raising the issue of racial equality, majority rule, and raising this issue that the fears that the neo-Nazi Afrikaner resistance movement, the right-wingers that they had to us of having their own homeland will never find will never find that space in the sun. But here we have people are in the US, people are talking of being refugees somewhere, but Nelson Mandela have said it before, never in his lifetime he will allow a separate homeland in the new South Africa that was built in 1994.
Balkanization is what they call it, yeah.
Balkanization, correct, as you have said that folk start, as they will say, in a white homeland. Thulas, Asante Sana, as we're still leading the conversation, SFM, observing the human rights man.
Sipho, thank you. Have yourself a fantastic weekend. That's Sipho Mantula there with your Africa update here on The Morning Brief.
Mazatsanza Apitori and the Buccaneers are well aware of how close they are to the semi-finals. They both want a VIP ticket to the last four. Who will conquer the pitch battle? Royal Blue or Black and White? This is the Nedbank Cup quarter-final. SuperSport United FC versus Orlando Pirates FC. This Saturday, 8 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's been an unusually busy Friday coming out of Pretoria down through Midrand and on towards Joburg. This morning we've had a couple of incidents. One has been some roaming cattle that have been there overnight around Rigel. Looks like some lanes have been reopened. The big backlog coming into Rigel Avenue has eased. They've been chasing the cattle from the central reservation across up onto the embankment on the left, and that's seen some lane closures go in, but that traffic is starting to ease. The other big queue is from Bruckfontein interchange all the way down to a crash just before Allendale. That's really heavy on the M1. A lot of spillover onto the R101 as motorists motorists seek an alternative route and just jam that up. And then routes like Samrand, Olifants and New Road are all queuing to get into the highway because of that severe pressure. It is the standout this morning in terms of the highways. The other one that's sort of rivaling it is the N3 North with a breakdown near Modderfontein Road. So coming up through Galulis, that's all pretty heavy. Durban side today, earlier crash coming out of Amanzam Toti on your way through Prospect, and that has been cleared. The M4 Southern Freeway going in, that's quite slow. Coming up into that sort of Mbilo area from Clarewood. Unusual queues on your way to Durban. Unusual backlogs on Cape Town's Baden-Powell Drive. Very heavy from Spear, heading out towards Adam Tuss for connections into the Stellenbosch area this morning. Long-term roadworks, but you don't normally queue like you are this morning. Staying in Cape Town, crash on the N2 inbound at Bunga Avenue. A breakdown near Lisbech Parkway, also on the N2 inbound. So there's left lane closures at both of those locations. Quite heavy coming through from Robert Sobukwe, just after the airports where you'll pick up that backlog. And the N6 just north of East London at Duckett's, which has been on a protest this week. The latest protest this morning has been cleared and traffic is starting to flow through there. It is sporadic of nature. You might want to check before you travel. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Bafana are taking on Lesotho at the new Peter Mokaba Stadium on the 21st of March 2025 at 6 p.m. for the FIFA World Cup 2026 qualifier. Come early, dressed to commemorate Human Rights Day and support Bafana for a chance to win prizes from our host, Limpopo Government and Polokwane Municipality. Gates open at 3 p.m. and tickets start from 70 Rand for adults with special rates available at 40 Rand for children under 12 at all Ticket Pro outlets. If you can't make it to Polokwane, catch the game live on SABC2 at 6 p.m. or visit sabcsport.com. For more details, visit safa.net and Bafana on X and TikTok. The pressure is mounting in the second half of the league. Both SC Freiburg and RB Leipzig refuse to bow. They want to triumph to protect their top half positions. This is the Bundesliga. Football at its meant to be. Experience the German way of the beautiful game. Sporting Club Freiburg versus RB Leipzig on Saturday, 8 March at 7:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCsport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Let 100 flowers bloom, let 100 schools of thought contend. Let's take your calls. Let's hear what you've got to say this morning. I want to start with Arthur in Opongolo. Good morning to you, Arthur. You want to reflect on the conversation I had earlier on with the Minister, Ronald Lamula.
Yes, good morning to us and listeners. Actually, I wanted to pose a question to the Minister while he was on that. I wanted to pose about the position of international relations and the government as a whole and President Ramaphosa. The standing on about the support of the people of Burkinabe. We acknowledge the president, the current president, Traore, is the greatest president currently in Africa. As written to the combined countries, he is working for the people of Burkinabe. His interest is not even just to the salary. So I wanted to pose a question to them. As much as they knew he took the presidency by coup, but look at what he's doing.
Yeah.
Where is South Africa standing? Because I wanted to pose it directly to him.
Yeah.
Are we supporting the people of Burkinabe as we see the progress they are just beginning to benefit the entrance of democracy? And then I would have also posed a question to say, President Ramaphosa was in Johannesburg. How many years have he been in the presidency? He finished up the term of the former President Jacob Zuma. So if you compare our president and President Traore, the difference you complain about how they.
Yeah.
Where are we standing? We are Africans. We see what President is doing. So why are we just being made to cry baby?
Right. Arthur, that's an interesting one to pose. And I suppose we can even fashion a conversation going forward. And in fact, I think the team must pick it up. We must pick it up on our side. Thank you for that. The conversation about Ibrahim Traore is what Arthur is talking about. It poses an interesting question, doesn't it? Because the position of the African Union is to isolate and not recognize leaders who come to power through coups. But certainly, at least from the reports that are coming out of Burkina Faso, is the performance of this military leader who is in power now, Ibrahim Traore. I wonder, if we can fashion a conversation about that. Let's see if we can do it sometime next week. Jacob in KwaZulu-Natal, good morning. It's not the Jacob that it's not Ngamalala, is it? I'm just kidding. Please go ahead. You want to talk to me about PEPFAR?
Yes. I am reminded here of what the former president Thabo Mbeki once said. He used to resort to a certain statement that history will judge us. That was at his darkest hour on the issue of HIV/AIDS.
Yes.
That was when this PEPFAR project started, because it started in 2003 in the U.S. as the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. The Minister of Health at that time, Mrs. Shabalala Msimang,
yes,
was of the opinion that South Africa must produce ARVs as generics here in the country, which was strongly opposed. Pushback was strong from big pharma in the U.S. and certain interests within the country that were led by the Treatment Action Campaign of Mr. Zaki Ahmad. What later transpired was the PEPFAR, which pushed for offering free ARVs. But apparently, what we did not know then is that this PEPFAR agreement came with an undertaking that South Africa will stop producing generic ARVs to protect the
intellectual property.
Intellectual property,
yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, what I am seeing now, and they funded organizations like Treatment Action Campaign to say, what is the point of trying to reinvent the wheel when we are being given the ARVs for free?
Sure.
That now is coming back to bite us.
Jacob, thank you.
Now is being withdrawn.
All right, Jacob, thank you for that.
We don't have the capacity to produce our own.
All right, Jacob in KwaZulu-Natal, placing that conversation within its historical context, certainly as far as he understands it, and going all the way back around the evolution of our battle against HIV and AIDS. Vusi in Midrand, good morning to you. You want to talk to me about withdrawal of funding by the U.S. President Donald Trump. Go ahead.
Correct. Morning, Thulasizwe.
Good morning.
Yeah, I think the move by Donald Trump, to some who understand geopolitics, will approach it. Look, the move is going to help South Africa, because don't forget that the withdrawal of those billions from the IMF and the World Bank into the just energy funding, at the same time, it alleviates the South African masses on this draconian tax, which the ruling parties want to impose to the taxpayers. That's number one. Number two, to support the sentiment of the guy in Upongol, to say, you see the move, which is happening currently now with the withdrawal of these fundings. It is going to help a lot of South Africa on the loans which has been taken from the IMF by the World Bank. Even today, those monies the current regime cannot account into. So this is a powerful move.
How, Vusi? Wait, let me engage you very quickly. How will it help? Is there no potential that the government, in trying to plug the hole left by the withdrawal of the PEPFAR funding and other funding, may actually turn to the IMF and World Bank for loans to actually pay for some of the things that you're talking about? So I don't know. I don't see how it will help in removing us from that loan system.
Let me assist you. Currently, as we are discussing now, ask any energy expert, they will tell you that the move to the just energy transaction is something which we don't need. It's toxic. because there's no any, currently as we're speaking, South Africa is having an abundance of coal. Whereas that coal is heading to UK, to the west. The coal which was supposed to be assisting this country as we're speaking now. Then that move on its own is just not there. The model is not working. Number one, then the money which they are doing, the money which they are funding that just energy transaction is the loans which have been done at the IMF. Number two, the very same ARVs which we are discussing now is the ARVs which these illegal foreigners from Zimbabwe they cross the border coming to South Africa and collect them and go back to Zimbabwe and sell them.
Vusi, I've got to go. Yeah.
That on its own.
Gotcha. Thank you.
On its own, that discussion.
That's Vusi in Midrand there. And that's how we come to 8 a.m. Let's check in with Ondela Mbana with the latest news.
Thank you, Thulas. Top stories at 8. 3 killed in a shooting incident at a Santin restaurant, and Ramaphosa wraps up his visit to Gauteng this morning. For SAFM News, I am Ondela Mbana, and a very good morning. Gauteng police are investigating a case of murder and attempted murder following a shooting incident that claimed 3 lives and leaving 4 injured at a Santin restaurant in Johannesburg last night. This is ahead of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature's Portfolio Committee on Community Safety releasing the third quarter crime statistics in the city today. According to police, a man with a firearm wanted to enter the restaurant, which has a no firearm policy, when an altercation began. This led to a shootout between the man's bodyguards and security at the restaurant. Police spokesperson Colonel Demakatso Nebuhuli has further details.
2 of the bodyguards were declared dead on the scene, while 5 victims were taken to a local hospital with gunshot injuries. And the man unfortunately succumbed to his injuries on arrival at the hospital. Preliminary investigation revealed that the man who started this has previously been arrested for a shooting incident also in Sandton last year. Currently, no one has been arrested and police investigations continue.
Civil society organization OUTA has called for the taxation of the taxi industry as well as the informal sector. This as the budget speech approaches and members in the GNU are still unable to agree on where to find the 58 billion rand shortfall. Last month, the GNU members fiercely opposed Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana's alleged plan to impose a 2% VAT increase, which led to the first ever postponement of the speech. However, OUTA has identified 11 areas that could generate significant more revenue than the proposed VAT increase. OUTA CEO Wayne Juvenage.
Broaden the tax base, so we've got a lot of informal industry and certainly the taxi industry that is not within the tax base. If you just go and start doing that, start off slowly, we should be able to get 2 billion rand a year and build that up to about 9 billion rand per annum going forward. And it's not to punish the taxi industry, it's to say you are formalized, you are businesses, you need to be bought into the net. There's no reason why an industry like the taxi industry should not be taxed.
South Africa is bearing the brunt of its Palestinian support against Israel, which led to the U.S. government stopping aid to the country. That's what EFF leader Julius Malema argued during an urgent debate in Parliament discussing the halting of the U.S. president's emergency plan for AIDS relief for South Africa. Malema says the decision by the U.S. President Donald Trump and his administration was a predetermined resolution.
The U.S. aggression towards South Africa is nothing more than Israel's revenge for our moral stance in support of Palestine. Meanwhile, some of us have been labeled international criminals, a destination used before the West assassinates those who opposed its agenda. Before invading the nations, the U.S. always fabricates human rights violation to justify intervention. Today, same tactics are being used against South Africa. The growing calls by right-wing groups for foreign funding to establish independent states and to be armed by foreign interests must be recognized as part of a broader plan. This is the early stage of economic isolation.
President Cyril Ramaphosa will wrap up his visit to the Gauteng government with a meeting of members of the Johannesburg City Council this morning. Accompanied by several cabinet ministers and their deputies as well as some directors general, he met the Gauteng executive yesterday. In the meeting, the president expressed his displeasure at the state of the dilapidation of the province and the city. He encouraged the province to work closely with the private sector to ensure innovative ways of funding key infrastructure projects, including working with metros in providing incentives to crowd in private sector participation.
Gauteng contributes to the largest share of any province of the country's gross domestic product, most critical economic hub in the country, serving as a powerhouse of finance, governance, industry and innovation. Johannesburg, as the financial capital of Africa, is home to this Johannesburg Stock Exchange and is headquarters of numerous multinational corporations. It is a city of commerce, it is a city of investment and economic dynamism.
The trial of 3 people accused of the disappearance of 7-year-old Jocelyn Smith continues at the Western Cape High Court, sitting in Saldanha Bay today. Jocelyn's mother, Kelly Smith, her boyfriend, Jacquina Paulus, and Steveno van Rijn face charges of kidnapping and trafficking in connection with the little girl's disappearance. Yesterday, an in-loco inspection was conducted at the house where the child went missing in February last year. Several other dwellings were also pointed out in the Middle Post informal settlement. This morning, a police detective, Sergeant Meyer Milstein, is expected to continue his testimony. He is the state's 4th witness. Tributes continue to pour in following the death of local actress Crystal Donna Roberts at age 40. She passed away yesterday after a battle with cancer. She was known for her many television roles, and on the stage she played the role of Krotoa in the movie of the same name. She also starred in local television series Siavandilan as well as Arensvlei. Western Cape Minister of Cultural Affairs and Sport Ricardo Mackenzie says she was a beloved member of the local theatre community. Recapping the top story, Gauteng police are investigating a case of murder and attempted murder following a shooting incident that claimed 3 lives and leaving 4 injured last night at a restaurant in Sandton. I am Ondelambana for SAFM News, headlines at 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, very heavy on the N1 still, coming through Midrand on your way to Joburg. Crash just between New Road and Allendale, probably halfway between those 2 exits. Very heavy. The N1's parked all the way back through beyond Old Joburg Road. That's only half the story. The sort of alternative route corridor, the Old Joburg Road, that's taking a big overflow of traffic. And then others are queuing to get in at Samrand, Olifants and New Road. And then routes that feed in, like Roy Ace Kraal and Lever, into Olifants and into New Road. That's all just heavily backed up. So the N1 and its sort of associated corridors through Midrand having a real nightmare traffic run this morning. 511 Danefern coming down to 4 ways. There's some pressure there this morning. And the N3 North, a breakdown at Modderfontein Road. So coming up from Bedfordview through Galilee's interchange remains heavy. A little bit of traffic out of Pietermaritzburg this morning. It's a crash between Market Road and Ashburton. All lanes are open, but there is just a residual backlog there. M4 slow through Congella, but easing as you make your way up into the city centre. Cape Town's Baden-Powell, extra heavy as you run through from Spear towards the Adam Tuss link into Stellenbosch. Roadworks have been there a long time, but it's very busy. And a lot of traffic around the South Peninsula. I'm not sure whether it's linked to this coming weekend cycle tour or not, but the beachfront at Muizenberg onto Atlantic to Main Road, and Main Road through St James to Cork Bay. Unusually busy conditions that side of town. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. It's Soccer News. SuperSport United sharpening their swords for Orlando Pirates in their Nedbank Cup showdown tomorrow. And we also have Formula One news where Sir Lewis Hamilton is ready for his debut in red in Melbourne next weekend. We'll have all this and more at around 8:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 9 minutes after 8. Hey, folks, good morning and a happy Friday to you. You're listening to the Morning Brief here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. Just a quick recap. I see a lot of you weighing in on the conversations we've been having in the last 2 hours, and we'll make time and we'll take your calls and your WhatsApp voice notes. In the main, many of you are responding to the two sides of the argument, right, about this visit that the DA undertook. Andrew Whitfield and Emma Powell went to Washington, to the United States, where they're saying that they were playing their role as interested parties and stakeholders in the government of national unity to try and stabilize the relationship between Washington and Pretoria. That has not sat well with the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. So I spoke to both Emma Powell as well as the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamula, who insists that the format and the procedures were not followed in this instance. So the DA went there on their own representing the DA. They cannot purport to be representing the government of South Africa. So I want to hear from you, your reflections. If you heard both sides of the argument, well, on which side do you land? Is the minister emphasizing form over substance, in that the DA says they were going there to put facts on the table so that decisions taken by politicians in Washington are based on facts? Or do you side with the minister saying that actually there is a procedure, it's in the Constitution, and it has not been superseded and replaced by the fact of the existence of the government of national unity? And you cannot run, his words were, you cannot run a country like that. It will be a free-for-all if anyone can just, put together a delegation and go to any capital and present a case and say that they're representing South Africa. I'd love to hear from you. The number to dial 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes, please send them to 061 410 4107. An interesting conversation coming up in the next few minutes with the MMC for Public Safety in the city of Johannesburg, Mgcini Jwaku. It has to do with the reports that the city is close on finalizing an agreement of sorts, a deal with the controversial TV presenter Xolani Khumalo, who's out on bail and is facing is set to go on trial for murder and facing other multiple serious charges. The city of Joburg wants to work with him in terms of crime fighting. Mgcini Jwaku is my guest in the next few minutes. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The third hour of the Friday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Fizzy drinks and fruit juices can make our children sick. Sugar is dumped into their bodies with every sip, which could lead to obesity, heart disease, and diabetes as they age. We must protect them from drinks high in sugar. Demand a stricter health promotion levy now. Sign the petition on heala.org. That's HEALA.org.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
13 minutes after 8. The city of Johannesburg is reportedly close to finalizing a deal with TV presenter Xolani Khumalo, despite him being out on bail for murder and facing multiple serious charges. Khumalo, known for his crime-fighting efforts, has been working alongside law enforcement, we are told, but his pending trial and past allegations are raising eyebrows. The decision to collaborate with him has sparked debate, with critics questioning whether someone facing such charges should be involved at all in official crime-fighting efforts. Let's speak now to the MMC for Public Safety in the city of Johannesburg. That's Dr. Mgcini Jwaku. Good morning to you, Doc, and thank you for your time. Can you confirm that you are close to reaching this agreement to work with Xolani Khumalo, and why?
No, thank you very much, Thulasizwe. Good morning to yourself and the listeners. It currently is that what we're doing with Xolani, we have been in the Department of Public Safety under my office of the MMC. And in the office of the MMC, there is what is called a stakeholder relation. In the stakeholder, relation, we work with the banks, business people,
sure,
and private security, and any other NGO or foundation that is willing to fight crime. And Kolani is one of those individuals who have approached us. We've been approached by many companies, by many NGOs, that wants to fight crime with us. I mean, in some of the operation you've seen working with people like about Bad Boys coming through, Bad Boys Security, Vision Tactical,
Sure,
and many of
I
them.
get
So,
that, MMC,
Kolani-
but this is
so
a
let us-
particular question.
Yeah,
Are you
so
close to
yeah,
reaching a deal with Kolani Khumalo? I hear what you're saying.
So
not
what
all
happens
these other people you mentioned are accused of crime, so this
I'm
is
getting
specific
there.
about him.
No, but what happens is that, so we've been having discussion with Kolani for almost 2 years when we launched the tactical unit. So those conversations have been happening in terms of how best can we work with him so that we can, because each MPD, we've launched a tactical reaction unit. And in our crime fighting strategy, we need an intelligence-based approach. So we found him that he's got a network of intelligence and he's disturbing the network of drug dealers in the city, and he's stepping on people's toes, which is what we want in the city. So we were looking into that. So there's been talks and everything, but there's nothing that has been finalized. It is how best can we actually work with him.
The serious
So, look,
allegations
I
that he
understand.
faces don't disturb you? The fact that he's due to go on trial for murder and other serious charges, none of that disturbs you?
Look, this my matter of Kolani. It is actually subject to care, not convicted and all of that. If there's any conviction that is there, then that will be the time that you think, okay, look, this is going to be unethical. But I can come to you and say Thulasizwe is raped. He's a rapist. He's a bad person. Then they cast aspersion on you. So what must I do after
Except though, if you're saying that about me, MMC, it's very different from a prosecutor under the NPA looking at what is presented by way of a docket and saying, I've seen enough here that there's a prima facie case that I can take to trial. We're not talking about someone who's merely accused. We're talking about someone who's about to go on trial based on a prima facie case.
He said to me, MMC, you've got a tactical unit, you've got a gym, you've got a firepower. There are drugs there in actually Hillbrook. What must I do? Must I say, Kolani, I can't get information for you because when you've been accused of A, B, C, and D.
Well, MMC,
So
that's an informant, very valuable. An informant, even criminals can be informants, but you don't then engage them and have a contract with them. Out of which you will be paying them from ratepayers' monies. I think that's this little delineation. So what are you discussing with him?
Exactly. So in other words, it's a working relation that is there, because what he wants to do is that I said to him, look, we can have a strategic, relations that on your side is that you've got this foundation that is actually dealing with crime, going out there, and you have these videos that you're taking there, so that you can have your own. Whatever they are doing, those things they actually do with their immortal love and all those things, but in that they will be able to get income for themselves, but also as the law enforcement officers, we are getting this crime fighting, this information. So I've been getting information from Kolani. That's why you've been seeing me.
Sure.
You've been seeing the tactical reaction unit has been a crime busting unit everywhere.
I get
because of that.
MMC?
Now you see now you guys are putting the cart before the horse.
Okay.
Your horse has bolted, but you guys have never asked me about what form of relationship are you having with him. No one said anything.
So I'm asking you now. I'm asking you now.
No,
I'm asking you now.
is not-
What form of relationship will you have? Yes.
The problem that I'm having about this thing is that shame an individual there. He's actually, that the person is clearing his name. But yourself and the public are judging him there. For example, in that eyewitness, how can you say a matter accused Kolani, but that the matter it's a subjudice case? So in other words, there's a public trial on him, which is really
not really
unfair.
MMC.
And you guys have never. So what happens is that
Not really. Factually, he is murder accused. Factually.
Yeah. So
no one is
so
saying
what
he's a
happened?
murderer. But we are saying he's murder accused, which is factual.
But the usage of the name really, I think that it is really unfair, because and also is that you've concluded that he's going to be paid and everything. That
So that's
let us put that aside. Ne?
MMC, wait, before you move on, MMC, actually what you just said now is actually the fundamental point for me. If you recall, just a few minutes ago, I said to you, informants are a real concept, and I agree with you. If there's an informant, even if they are in prison, convicted, and they give you useful information, by all means, use it. What I've not gotten from you, MMC, and I'm hoping I'll get it now, is you saying one way or another, are you talking about giving him a contract out of which he will be paid, yes or no?
There's no contract that's going to be thing. It's a memorandum of understanding like any other.
That's a contract. Memorandum of understanding is a contract.
No, in terms of, but there will be no sort of, in terms of how are we going to be working, the rules of the game. In other words, you can't do A, B, C, and D, but there's no financial implication on that.
I hear that. No, Ndiaguva. I wanted to get you clearly. So I understand now. So no agreement and he will not be paid.
No, it's not going to be paid. In other words, memorandum of understanding or service, it's just that this is what is going to happen. You are not allowed to do A, B, C, and D.
All right.
You give us information. You come with us. We are going to be leading everything. This must not happen. This must not happen, so that we can probably avert what has been said or alleged that has been happening. Is to saying that this is how we work as the police. We must get a search warrant. This is how you handle a scene and all those things. But
MMC, thank you.
He's a crime buster, and what I can tell you now is that so many people, we've got footages of people coming to collect money in the drug dealers and everything. So there's a lot.
So he's been quite helpful. All right, MMC.
So in other words, we're very helpful. So people, they're actually after him. So Kolani, we actually got 10 sites and Hill that were going to hit very hard, and many people are very actually angry about that.
Okay, gotcha. MMC, thank you. I think we've clarified the point that we wanted to clarify. That's the MMC for Public Safety in the city of Johannesburg, Dr. Mgcini Chwaku.
The Seagulls want to play their hearts out to secure maximum points on home soil.
And Pedro could be in here. Pedro's one-on-one. João Pedro! That is impeccable.
Meanwhile, the Cottagers understand the power of 3 points. They want a comfortable top half position.
Back in, Ralph. Yes! It's been coming. What a piece, and we deserve that, Fulham. That's a great finish from Raul. It was a great move.
This is the Premier League. Experience the spectacular action between Brighton and Hove Albion FC and Fulham FC. The Saturday 8 March at 4:30 p.m. Live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
So you've heard OUTsurance clients talking about all the money they saved when they switched. You've thought about getting a quote, but you're not sure if they could save you money on your car insurance or if it's worth the effort. Well, make today the day you get an OUTsurance quote. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. If OUTsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Monthly savings on your car insurance or cash in your pocket. Either way, you're a winner, like Thulani.
Fast, helpful, efficient, everything was so smooth. I saved 530 bucks.
Make today the day you switch and save. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With OUTsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Let me take one or two of your voice notes as well as your calls now. Let's start with this one on the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who is heading to South Africa on the 10th of April.
Good morning, Thulasizwe and your listeners. There is a golden opportunity with the visit of this comedian from Ukraine. Let Ramaphosa meet him in Lesotho. At least it will give Lesotho some exposure worldwide. Thank you.
That's an interesting take on it, based on what Donald Trump said about Lesotho. And of course, a lot of you have been talking about the trip that the DA has undertaken to Washington and the subsequent debate that has happened about whether or not it was appropriate.
Good morning, this is Clive. I just want to speak on the DA's visit to the US. I don't understand this controversy, surrounding that, about them going to the US. I mean, the DA is a key partner in this GNU, so they were well within their rights, to go to the US. So I believe that they acted within the best interests of the country.
All right. Thank you for that. That's certainly their argument. So let me just take a call now from Chiridzi in Midrand. Good morning to you, Chiridzi. You also want to weigh in on my conversation with Minister Lamula?
Yes, morning to Laz. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
I'm good. I think Ronald Lamula's time has passed so early in politics because he seems to want to keep on portraying the good image of the ANC leadership on us. And that time is long gone. We as the public of South Africa, we no longer believe that there is anything that the ANC will do at our best interest. That is a fact. And even if they try to come and play the constitution card on us when we now question some of the things, or we now decide to do things in our own way because they don't listen to us, they don't do things according to what the majority say, and when the tables are turned, they are come and say, we are a constitutional democracy, we respect the constitution, everything must be done through the constitution, while they themselves do not respect the very same constitution that they are talking about.
So bring it home for me then, Chiridzi. In this context, what does that mean for how you view this visit by the DA versus what the minister has said about it?
Like, what is happening now is that they have the GNU there, and the ANC tried to get audience with the American government, and they failed currently. Then the DA found audience with the American government, and they succeeded. And now the ANC want to portray the DA as the unruly. They tried. They wanted this very same audience that the DA got. Yeah. The ANC tried to get it, and they failed. And they must now look at why did we fail as the ANC led to get the audience.
All right.
And it comes back to the fact that their time has gone.
All right,
and they must just agree.
Thank you for that. That's Chiridzi in Midrand there. An interesting take on that particular story. I don't know what buttons I'm pressing this morning now. Let me take a call from Tando in the Eastern Cape. Good morning to you, Tando. You want to talk about POTUS 47?
What?
The U.S. president.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I can't agree with this guy who you just spoken to more. Of what is happening in our country. But on this over consultation of Trump, it could lead to people of Oranje, the Afrikaners, they're saying, okay, we're not coming over to Texas, but can you make us the 51st state of America, considering that he wants to annex Greenland, he wants to annex Canada, Mexico. I mean, the guy is totally organized. But anyway, what I wanted to say seriously is, I want to ask you a question first. Is there something like low treason? Because I hear high treason. I'm thinking, is there low treason?
That's interesting. When Tando,
I'll tell you why I'm asking that.
Yes.
In jest, but serious jest. It's a tragicomedy, what is happening in our country. Now, if you want to put those guys on the stand, Solidarity and the other ones, what about the people who have destroyed this economy, who have sold this country? They have state captured. They gave it to Indians, not in from Durban, Indians from India, and to run the country. They have wasted so much money. They've stolen so much money. It's There's no treasonous criminality that has been on display than what these people have done.
Gotcha.
And they should also be in the stand. They should be actually put there and be accountable.
Yeah. Tando, thank you for that.
I wish it was like China. In China, they line up and what do you call firing squad?
Okay, I hear you, Tando. Thank you for that. That's Tando there. He makes some really interesting points while also infusing a bit of, in typical South African fashion, of course, infusing a bit of humor there, saying some things in jest, but actually with a more stronger and more serious point that he is making. The point about high treason, Tando, is that it is defined, it is a common law crime, specifically defined with practice, as and when it has had to be interpreted in the courts. What is the content of this crime? At what point does a person's conduct rise to the standard of being treason? So it develops over a period of time. But that point you make in jest about whether there's a low treason versus high treason, to be honest with you, I don't know the answer there. It will be interesting to hear someone who's got a background and understanding of why the qualification high and not just treason. 8:30, let's check in with Ondela Mbana with the latest news headlines.
Thank you, Tulas. In the news headlines, Gauteng police are investigating a case of murder and attempted murder following a shooting incident that left 3 people dead and 4 injured at Solo Restaurant in Sandton, Johannesburg last night. Civil society organization OUTA has called for the taxation of the taxi industry as well as the informal sector. This as the budget speech approaches and members in the GNU are still unable to agree on where to find the 58 billion rand shortfall. And Sudan has taken the United Arab Emirates to the International Court of Justice, accusing it of supporting the paramilitary rapid support forces in the civil war. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's been a difficult Friday negotiating mid-rand. It's been this earlier crash between New Road and Allendale, which really backed everything up. That is being cleared for some time, but there's still a really big backlog coming down through Brakfontein down towards the New Road exit. So the highway's busy and a lot of spillover, either trying to get in or trying to get out. Old Joburg Road down through Centurion Midrand, that's heavy. Olifantsfontein Road from the Blue Hill side, very heavy. Lever Road into that's bad. Samrand's backed up to get into the M1 highway, and a lot of traffic diverting down the R55, so Blue Hills, Crowthorne, Kyalami, that side taking some noticeably heavier volumes this morning. Looks like a bit of traffic might be diverting down the main road because that's quite heavy out of Kyalami through to Lone Hill territory this morning. Durban side, the M4 running Congela, Umbilo into CBD, that's all cleared up. The N2 South heavy between between Umgeta Road and Spaghetti Junction. If you're coming down from sort of Queen Nutty Drive, you'll get to about Inunda Road and then you'll hit a massive pile up of traffic. Could be a broken down vehicle in the construction. It's got that sort of feel about it. Cape Town, a crash in on the N2 inbound in front of Langa by Bunga Avenue and a broken down vehicle just before Main Road. So the N2 inbound stays heavy coming through from Robert Sobukwe. On top of that, some real pressure on Jake Scoville Drive northbound. Lights are down at the N2 bridge, plus some problems sort of merging into that traffic. So from Vangate Mall, the N7 going north is very slow. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you once again, Zai. So the SuperSport team and its coaching staff are looking in the horizon. They are seeing a pirate ship approaching and they are saying, hang on, watch yourselves. Yeah. Sailor Saile is on standby to deal with you.
Yeah, apparently Sail's scoring boots are back on, but we don't know if he'll be able to walk the talk. The confidence for him is coming from the SuperSport assistant coach, Andre Arendse, issuing a warning ahead of their Nedbank Cup showdown with Orlando Pirates. Now, the 25-year-old Christian Sail has been on form. He's on loan, by the way, from Kaizer Chiefs. He's already netted 3 times for SuperSport, and Arendse believes the best is yet to come.
I think where we've gone as a club, in terms of our development structures and developing to sell, that type of thing. So, that's become the lifeblood of our club. And sometimes it does pose a little bit of a problem trying to keep squads together, for example. But we've been able to manage that. The league takes priority over cups, but it does give you a sort of feel-good factor. And that's one of the reasons why we feel that We need to embrace this opportunity.
Meanwhile, the Bucks coach Jose Rivero has admitted that it's not going to be easy to beat Masatsansa Epatori, especially in Polokwane, and that their schedule is set to get worse for the Buccaneers. They head back into CAF Champions League knockout action next month, with the club now 16 points behind Mamelodi Sundowns with 4 games in hand. These are all the factors that challenge the mentality of a footballer as Rivero continues to make his case.
We as a coaches, we have to make sure that we get enough time to rest mentally. We are not running, but trust me that the games are tough also for us. But it's something to maybe in a different space, in a different context to talk about it, because the schedule right now, having to compete every 2 days, trust me, it not only belongs to the physical space. For me, the mental side, it's much more important. Play for Pirates is not an easy thing. There's a certain level of pressure in each and every game that the player must, handle, and not having time between the games is you pay a decent bill in each and every game. I don't know if it makes sense what I'm saying or if I express myself correctly. But yeah, we're trying everything as a club. We're trying everything as a coaching staff to make sure that the show can continue.
On to golf, and China's Wenyi Ding and England's Jordan Smith, well, they opened with rounds of 7 under par 63 on the par 70 at the Houghton Golf Club course to share the lead at the Joburg Open. They lead by 1 over South Africa's Malcolm Mitchell and Jaden Shaper, as well as Englishman Marco Penge and Callum Tarrant. Wyndham Clark carded a 5 under par round of 67 in the opening round of the 2025 Arnold Palmer Invitational to take a 2-shot lead over a quality field at the Bay Hill Club and Lodge in Orlando, Florida. Clark leads a quartet of players on 3 under, with the US Ryder Cup captain Keegan Bradley, Ireland's Shane Lowry, Corey Connors of Canada, and South Africa's Christian Bezuidenhout. And finally, Formula One, the most successful team Ferrari put on a show in Milan as new signings Lewis Hamilton and teammate Charles Leclerc tore through the city streets in a display ahead of the new season. Some 35,000 passionate tifosi packed Piazza Castello watching Hamilton and his teammate Leclerc burn rubber. Here's Hamilton.
I'm not surprised. I've seen the tifosi over the years for Sebastian. I've seen them for Fernando. I've seen it for Charles and Carlos, so I wasn't surprised. I guess I didn't know that we would be outside of this beautiful castle here. I want to learn the history a bit about this. It's stunning. And then to see the sea of red of people there was pretty amazing.
And that's a wrap of the Morning Brief Sport. There'll be more with John Gericke around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again in Dowling. So it would seem every day there's a new executive order out of the Oval Office in Washington, and occasionally it has to do with South Africa, and such was the case yesterday. Tell me about the withdrawal of the United States from the Just Energy Transition funding, and where does that leave South Africa?
So South Africa now is trying to find alternative funding to fill a $1.56 billion climate financing gap after the U.S. withdrew from the Just Energy Transition Partnership. The partnership is an initiative aimed at helping South Africa and other countries transition away from coal and reduce carbon emissions. According to a Business Day article, the U.S. withdrawal reduces the overall international jet pledges to South Africa to $12.8 billion. The U.S. Embassy in South Africa cited President Trump's executive orders as the reason for the withdrawal, and this move is part of the U.S.'s stance towards green energy, which will likely affect other countries like Indonesia, Vietnam, and Senegal that are also part of the program. Now, despite this setback, South Africa remains committed to its Just Energy Transition Investment Plan, which aims to reduce carbon emissions by 350 million to 420 million tons by 2030. The plan also seeks to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. Now, other partners, including the UK, France, Germany, and EU, remain committed to supporting South Africa's plans. The remaining pledges amount to around $10 billion from individual countries and the EU, and $3.9 billion from multilateral development banks.
From money being taken away to money being put into the South African economy. Tell me about Microsoft unveiling their over 5 billion rand investment in this country.
That's right, Thulas. The company has announced an investment of 5.4 billion rands in digital infrastructure in the country, specifically in data centers to boost the adoption of artificial intelligence. Now, this investment adds to the 20.4 billion rands the company has already invested in South Africa over the past 3 years, bringing the total to 25.8 billion rands. According to Brad Smith, Microsoft's president and vice chair, the investment aims to drive economic growth through AI. The technology relies heavily on computing power housed in data centers, which is just one piece of a larger ecosystem that includes connectivity, smart device adoption, digital literacy, and application development. President Cyril Ramaphosa welcomed the investment, describing it as a vote of confidence in South Africa's economy. He also praised Microsoft's commitment to the country despite strained relations between the US and South Africa. The investment aligns with the government's goals of inclusive economic growth, job creation, and AI innovation.
Lastly, Ntauleng, what kind of a day can we look forward to in the markets on this Friday?
We're in for a mixed day of trade, Thulas, with global news really driving sentiment. Here at home, earnings season is in full swing, and traders will wake up to numbers from Minor, Arm, and Rainbow Chicken. Then over in the currency front, currency markets, a softer dollar working in the rand's benefit this morning. The local unit trading stronger at 18.15 to the dollar. Then over in Wall Street, futures in the green ahead of that all-important jobs print. Lastly, in Asia, markets making a U-turn for the worst. Now in negative territory, trade really choppy as investors continue to assess risks associated with Trump's trade policies.
All right, Ntauleng, thank you for that. Have yourself a great weekend. That's Ntauleng Lechela. She's kept you updated on business, economics, and the markets over the last 2.5 hours here on the Morning Brief.
S3 and Lorna Maseko are adding flavor to your Wednesday evenings. Lorna invites you on a journey of discovering new ways of transforming South African pantry staples into delectable and budget-friendly meals. From reimagining traditional South African dishes to infusing global inspirations, Lorna's inventive recipes and seasoned cooking tips inspire creativity and will empower viewers to navigate the kitchen with savvy resourcefulness. Tune into Lorna's Pantry, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
S3.
Hi everyone, I'm Dean McPherson, the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure. In the State of the Nation reply, I announced that we're releasing 31 state-owned properties for redevelopment that will generate 10 billion rand in investment and create 165,000 new jobs. These public-private partnerships will help us realize our dream to turn South Africa into a construction site. To achieve this, the department in 2025 will be leveraging reforms in infrastructure development through Infrastructure South Africa, release requests for proposals to redevelop our small harbours, which will create tens of thousands of new jobs, as well as reforming the expanded public works program to ensure it becomes a genuine stepping stone to permanent employment. We are accelerating efforts to get more cranes in the sky and more shovels in the ground. Our department is working for you and with you to build a better South Africa for the future.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
So quite a few of you responding and reacting to the conversation we had with the MMC Mgcini Jwaku about the city of Johannesburg's collaboration with Xolani Khumalo, that TV presenter who is known for his crime-fighting activities but is facing several allegations, including murder, and we are told he's likely to go on trial this year. Let me take one or two of your voice notes before I go on to the calls. Okay. For some reason, Okay, we'll come back to the voice notes in a moment. Let me just take a call from Muleme in Klerksdorp. Good morning to you, Muleme. You want to talk about this issue of Xolani Khumalo?
Correct.
Yes.
I just want to check with you as to whether you remember the matter relating to the Kodwa.
Yes.
The beginning and the end of it.
Yes.
And because I think you are very expressly prejudicial, or should I say very judgmental on this question in particular of Mr. Khumalo, because there are a number of cases where, like you made a reference to, a competent professional prosecutor could have made a judgment that there's a Fakia case.
Yes.
But if you look at the matter relating to the court, the very same happened. And what happened there was no provisional withdrawal of the matter, but there was a discharge.
Yes.
Now, don't you think how expressive you were and how you came out to be very judgmental, in my opinion,
okay,
on this particular matter, which I find very unfair.
Okay. No, that's fair enough, Muleme. I accept what you're saying. It's unfortunate that it came across as being prejudicial. And yeah, it's really unfortunate that you perceived it in that way. But the point about this is that what did Zizi Kodwa at the point at which he understood that his legal troubles are escalating to the point that he's going to be appearing in court, this is a case that the prosecutors will be bringing against him? Did he not step aside from those activities? And is there no responsibility to say, just based on the likelihood, it can go either way. He can be convicted, he can be acquitted. But does a public entity go into a contract knowingly with someone who faces the prospect of being convicted? Because the prospect exists.
I think we should look at it both ways. Assume there's a 70% a chance of 90% chance of acquittal, because the particular guy you referred to is not judged or is not charged alone. There were a number of other people around him in that team. Therefore, he was picked out as the president, and therefore, there are a number of other matters, or you can look at the question of the merit as we go forward. I think we should give him a chance to say he's presumed innocent and people guilty, and look at other cases.
Absolutely.
Where matters were before court and even for trial, but at the end they came out to be innocent.
There you and I are in agreement, Muleme. My only issue is that for me it's just different if you are already in the position and then you are accused. You then deal with it differently. But here you are as a public entity about to enter into a contract, but he did clarify that there is no contract at play. But I take the point you are making. Thank you for that. That's Muleme out in Klerksdorp. Let me take a call from Nikita in Gqeberha. Good morning to you, Nikita. You want to talk about the DA's trip to the United States?
Yes, salam Thulasizwe and welcome to the morning show. I'd like to talk about the trip of, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, it's about the DA's trip to the United States.
Yes.
Number one, I'd like to say that I am a card-carrying member of the African National Congress, number one, right? So I state that. But I understand that the DA is the second most voted Democratic one. It's a registered Democratic Party in South Africa. Secondly, it has received a mandate from 20%, maybe 20% of the population. And thirdly, it entered government, so it's a part of government. Now let's look, and it has a vested interest. That's why they would go there, they will lobby and want to be heard and listened by everyone in the country. There are people that are against them, people who might vote for them, people who never vote them. They have to engage them in the country, and I'm sure they are applying the same principle outside of the country, out of the fear that always say we govern best. Now, they will not want to have an economic decline whilst they are part of government, because they have AGOA, where almost 25% goes to the economy, and we know who votes for them. We know who funds them. So actually, it's funded mostly by upper middle income or by capital or bourgeois, if you can say that. So it affects their constituents. But besides that, overall, they do care for South Africa. Now,
Gotcha.
on the flip side, the minister is a minister with a title, with a role, with perks. Now, they may feel that the DA is usurping their power or is diminishing the position of that ministry. I think it boils down to actually that. And also, the DA and the ANC in Parliament, as in the other branch of government, the second branch, they have contradictory views.
Right.
And my namesake, but in conclusion, I would actually say my namesake, Nikita Tusha, says that just because two people holding diametrically opposing views, they meet and they shake hands, does not mean that those views will just disappear. I think that's the government as an entity, as a non-political, needs to clear out itself, needs to create trust, and that's it.
Let's leave it there. Thank you. And thank you for just taking it all the way back and quoting your namesake, Nikita Khrushchev. Let me take a call from Peter in Joburg. What an interesting call. Peter, good morning to you. You want to talk about President Cyril Ramaphosa?
Morning. How's it?
Good, how's it?
Good, thank you. I live in sort of the Joburg northern suburbs, work in Rosebank, and come along what used to be William Nicol Highway, William Mandela Drive. It's a joke. It's a joke. There are two traffic lights working. Yep. It's a free-for-all. I counted seven minibus taxis blatantly going through red lights, causing mayhem. It's a farce. Last night I did the same trip at 9 o'clock at night. No traffic lights working. No street lights working. And our President Ramaphosa, lives in Gauteng. He lives here. And he's shocked by the condition. He drives around in his black limos with the blue lights all over the place, and with his tinted windows, he can't see what's going on. They don't care if traffic lights work or not because they go through with all their sirens.
Peter?
He lives here, and how does he have the gall and the cheek to tell we, the people of Gauteng, and Joburg in particular, that our city and everything is crumbling and falling apart, and he's shocked to see how disgusting this city has fallen into decrepitude.
Thank you.
And he lives here.
Yep, absolutely.
He spends most of his time here. He's not visiting Gauteng. He lives in Gauteng.
Peter, thank you for making that point. Thank you for making that point there, Peter. That's Peter in Joburg. It's actually something that's been at the back of my mind, that the phraseology that says he's visiting Gauteng, he's not visiting. He lives here, and we live here, and we live with the realities that are being diagnosed at the moment. We make the diagnosis every day. We are seeking solutions.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
I was actually thinking this morning, if the president came from Pretoria, came down the N14, ducked off at Malabongwe Drive, and then came in through Kayasand North Riding, went across the highway to Stratham Park, ducked down Republic Road, and then turned down Jan Smuts through Craig Hall and into Rosebank, it would be enlightening for him just to see how many of those traffic lights are down. As the caller was just saying, there's many routes he could do that on and be just this enlightened, but that's one that really stands out. He'd find actually more lights out than are actually working. It's a major epic fail in Joburg at the moment. Roads this morning, the N1 south from Old Joburg down to New Road stays busy. A lot of congestion on the side road. The R101 coming from the M1 highway to Olifantsfontein across from Blue Hills through Lever with no traffic lights up towards the N1 highway with no traffic lights. It's quite badly backed up as well. The R21, a crash at Fountain Circle. So if you're driving into Pretoria from Monument Park, that's heavy. Truck crash recovery between Murray Hill and Valmondstal. So if you've just left Hammanskraal on your way in towards Pretoria, there is some queuing pressure. All lanes currently blocked. Durban's N2, a breakdown at Spaghetti Junction, delays back to Mgeni Road. And Cape Town, all the issues on the N2 in terms of crashes and breakdowns between Langa and Hospital Bend are being cleared, but the N2 inbound stays fairly heavily backed up on that run through to Hospital Bend. Main road through St James to Cork Bay going south is slow as well. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Mzansi Africa. SABC Sport is searching for talented football commentators. Are you knowledgeable and passionate about football commentary? Are you a great storyteller of the beautiful game?
That's why they're very good in controlling the ball and keeping it in minutes.
Submit a 2-minute commentary clip in your South African language of choice to commentator@sabcsport.co.za. Also email your full name, surname, and contact details. Shesha phela. Closing date is on Friday, 7 March 2025. Only shortlisted candidates will be invited for the second round of auditions at SABC Studios in March. SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The pressure is mounting in the second half of the league. Both SC Freiburg and RB Leipzig refuse to bow. They want to triumph to protect their top half positions. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Experience the German way of the beautiful game. Sporting Club Freiburg versus RB Leipzig on Saturday, 8 March at 7:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, Sunday World keeps you updated. Get breaking news, sports action, and exclusive celeb scoops at your fingertips. Read it, stream it, listen to it. Sunday World, news for all, anytime, anywhere.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let me take two quick calls and then your WhatsApp voice notes. Joseph, short and sharp for me, please. You want to reflect on MMC Mgcinichwaku and the conversation we had this morning.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Yes, I just want to answer that quickly. I'm calling currently from a prison cell. So now I feel the gentleman that want to come out, Mr. Kumalo, that want to come out and help police with the arrest. We see a lot of information. We are willing to give it to the police. However, the public has this thing of saying if you are being charged with a certain crime, you are already judged by the public, like it's happening now. Like you did it now by somehow giving the judgment on that judgment before you can even have the state. Solve many other cases that are outstanding there. We have to create a lot of information, but we are afraid to do that because of what the judgment will come to the public.
Yeah.
However, I think it's only fair knowing the state of our police system and the capabilities that they have and the qualities of the work that they bring forward, that we must take a step back and look before we can say, okay, this person has been...
Yeah, Joseph, thank you. Not the greatest of lines to Joseph there, but I think I did hear what Joseph was saying. Let me take one voice note on that.
Hello, Thulas, it's Tandy in Cape Town. Thulas, please leave this discussion aside, man. We as the people on the ground are experiencing problems. We want Kolani back. Just draw the line there and end this story. We want Kolani back. You guys are staying in the leafy suburbs. We're staying in the townships. And we're experiencing problems, and you keep probing this nonsensical issue. We want Kolani back. Just get it right, Kolani, please.
Morning, Thulas. Hey, you stepped on a road hole. That MMC, he has got something, a deal going on with between him and that Kolani guy. They've got a deal. Mark my words, definitely something is going to come out of this. Anonymous from Butterworth.
Thulasizwe, I'm very, very, very disappointed at you. The country is wrecked in crime and drugs and prostitution and human trafficking, but you dwelling on allegation of murder, which is being accused of Kolani. You can't even foresee the prospect of what is going to happen, the positive things that he's doing. Come on, man.
Yeah, I take that. I take your disappointment. But if you listened to my conversation, I said to the MMC that there is value in informants. There's definitely something there. Informants, even people who are in prison, actually the words that I used, even people who are convicted, they are used as informants as long as they have information and they are helpful. You do use it in your investigations. What I was trying to push the MMC on, and unfortunately if it came across as being prejudicial and judgmental, I take that. I take that criticism. But the point about it was that from a public expenditure perspective and dealing with risk, where there's the risk that you know going into this contract that this issue is already there. I mean, put it this way. We already take it that way when someone is already in position. You hear calls that say you put them on precautionary suspension. What more of a person who's not in a contract? You know that there are allegations and there's a trial that is going to take place, yet you go eyes wide open with many other options that you could, just for the contract part, not the information part, not the part where he is helpful to police. I can't put it better than that. To say the information that he's got may be quite helpful to the police, and they should access and use it just like they access and use information from other informants. I can't take it any further than that. Let me take a call from Alex in Cara Glen. Good morning to you, Alex. You want to talk about the DA visit? Short and sharp for me, please.
Chilas, I hope you are well and blessed. I'm going to try and push. The thing is, the problem with lawlessness is that we have a constitution, and you cannot equate what happens in the country as a state with what I am doing. It means that I can go to Trump. I can call Trump if I have a direct number like DA and others. I can call him and say, I want to explain our stance here. Because then I would have skipped the ministry and because I understand it better. I think I understand it better than the state. Meaning that the constitution has nothing bearing on me. Meaning that if I have a direct link to Mnangagwa, I can go to Mnangagwa and say, Mnangagwa, this is the position of the country. Me as Alex, can I do that? So why is the DA doing it? And everybody thinking that lawlessness must be condoned just because they're in the GNU. And what is it saying about them that are in the GNU and the policies they have made in the GNU? What are they saying about the country that they live in?
Alex, thank you for that. Let's leave it there for this morning. That's Alex in Karaklen. Thank you for listening. That's how we come to the end of today's edition of the Morning Brief. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your lively engagement. The Talking Point is up next here on SAFM after the news.
Thank you, Julas and the team. Top stories at 9. Update on Santin restaurant shooting and outer calls for the taxation of the taxi industry. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good morning. There is no police visibility outside the Solo restaurant in Sandton, Johannesburg this morning. This after a shooting incident last night that left 3 people dead and 4 others injured. According to police, a man with a firearm wanted to enter the restaurant, which has a no firearm policy, when an altercation ensued. This led to a shootout between the man's bodyguards and security at the restaurant. Thulasizwe Simelane reports from the scene.
As I approach the restaurant entrance, the restaurant cleaners are visibly attending to the aftermath of the deadly shooting. Bloodstains are evident, and the scent of the blood is also lingering heavily in the air. Preliminary investigations from the police revealed that one of the deceased had been previously arrested for a shooting incident in the same area last year. This incident comes ahead of the release of the third quarter statistics for Gauteng later today. There is no police visibility at the Solo restaurant at the moment. Attempts to speak to the management of the restaurant are still underway. Thulasizwe Simelane, SABC News, Sandton.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says the ongoing commitment by the U.S. technology company Microsoft to invest in South Africa will help reduce the historical digital divide in the country. This as the company intends to increase its investment by 5 billion rand in artificial intelligence technology infrastructure in South Africa. Ramaphosa was speaking at the company's South African headquarters yesterday. He says this initiative will also help in reducing the country's unemployment rate.
And in many ways working in partnership that we can ensure that artificial intelligence and its associated technologies does not deepen the digital divide, but actually narrows it and finally eliminates it.
Civil society organization OUTA has called for the taxation of the taxi industry as well as the informal sector. This as the budget speech approaches and members in the GNU are still unable to agree on where to find the 58 billion rand shortfall. Last month, GNU members fiercely opposed Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana's alleged plan to impose a 2% VAT increase, which led